So start with the prayers as others are still joining. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Pujayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति सुपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते सप्तकांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमस्ताय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ स्वामिने नामिने नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषण्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे त्वं करोति भङ्गं लङ्घयते गिरिं तातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरं हरि ओं तत्सत्। Hare Krishna. So very happy Diwali and especially happy Govardhan Puja today. Today is a very auspicious day of Govardhan Puja. It is the Pratipada Tithi, the day after Amavasya. It's also celebrated in India by certain communities as the New Year Day. So sometimes you'll also see wishes of Happy New Year, especially amongst the Gujaratis and other communities. But from a spiritual perspective, uh, today's day is Govardhan Puja, and tomorrow is Yamadvitiya. So, very wonderful day today, Govardhan. I hope you all have observed the celebration wherever you are based. We had a celebration in the morning at Shri Jagannath Mandir. A very wonderful Govardhan hill was made out of prasad, and we had a wonderful observation. The intention today for us is to continue our discussion on the Bhagavatam, 7th canto, chapter 2. So, 7th canto, as we mentioned, we are entering the discussion of the pastimes of Sri Prahlad Maharaj, one of the favorite pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. The first chapter of the 7th canto began with the doubt that Parikshit Maharaj had with respect to the alleged partiality that Lord Vishnu shows towards the Devatas. And there was an elaborate discussion around this. And towards the conclusion of that chapter, this chapter, Goswami mentions to Parikshit that Jay and Vijay, who appeared in these three incarnations, as Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, Ravan, Kumbhakarna, Dantavakra, Shishupal. There was a mention by him as to Hiranyakashipu being inimical towards his son Prahlad. And that mention triggered a curiosity in the heart of Parikshit Maharaj, and he wanted to know more. How come a father became so inimical towards his son, and apparently a saintly one at that he came to the point of trying to kill him, that the Supreme Lord had to incarnate? So that triggered off the discussion of the Katha of Hiranyakashipu. Of course, the pastime culminates with the appearance of Lord Narasimha. But the Katha begins, the background character of Hiranyakashipu. So the chapter 2 of the 7th canto, which we are discussing today, actually sets the background tone. Correct? I mean, normally when we see a movie also, especially if it's a character movie, then first 5-10 minutes of the movie are showing the exploits of the hero and, giving his background and what is his qualities and what is his nature and what is his. So this pastime begins with Hiranyakashipu being very disturbed and upset that his very dear brother Hiranyaksha was killed by Lord Vishnu. Even though the fact was that Lord Vishnu did not go, and attack and assassinate Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha created so much disturbance that he practically threw the earth off orbit and it sank into the Garbhodaka Ocean. And then the Lord rescued the earth, and then Hiranyaksha challenged the Lord, and then a duel ensued in which Hiranyaksha was killed. But the nature of demons is, it is all. He never saw, the demons don't see their own mistake. They're always eager to point fingers at others. Who are the cause of it? Vishnu is the problem. Actually, the Devatas wanted to destroy us. They took help of Vishnu. So, even though Hiranyakashipu considered the Devatas as their enemy, he wasn't too concerned about the Devatas because he knew he could still handle them. But he knew that if Vishnu is on the side of the Devatas, then, it can be quite challenging, as they saw in the case of Hiranyaksha. So Hiranyakashipu became very, very angry, and he began to really, really lament, and he became very, very upset. He was actually wild with rage, and his rage was directed towards Lord Vishnu. And he was so angry because his main frustration was that this Lord Vishnu, who's supposed to be impartial, he's supposed to be impartial. Why is he becoming partial to the Devatas? Why is he taking the side of Indra and attacking the demons? So he became very, very upset. So what Hiranyakashipu did, this is how this whole scene unfolds. He gathered all the prominent sages, the Danavas and the Daityas. The Daityas are his brothers and their descendants, because Daityas are the descendants of Diti. And the Danavas, who are the descendants of Danu, both of who are demoniac. So he was very, very angry. He summoned all the powerful Daityas and Danavas. He was very angry. He was holding a trident in his hand, and he was addressing all the assembled crowd of the demons. Their names are mentioned. Vimurda, Rakshaka, Sambara, Shatabahu, Hayagriva, Namuchi, Paka, Ilvala, Viprachitti, Pulomana, Shakuna. These are all very powerful, prominent demons. Hear me attentively. I want to tell you something very, very important. Our enemies, the Devatas, they plotted and killed our brother Hiranyaksha. And whose help they took? They took the help of Vishnu. Vishnu, who's supposed to be equal to all. But this time, by being worshipped very devoutly by the Devatas, the Vishnu's mind got corrupted. Are saying, Hiranyakashipu is Vishnu's mind. Just like a small child, sometimes somebody becomes very nice to the small child changes party. Correct? I mean, children are very fickle, right? Children are often very fickle. Sometimes, within children, there are groups who fight amongst each other. And the children do, in Hindi, we say katti and batti very fast. When you get angry with somebody, I don't want to talk to you. And batti means I'm friend with. So one side becomes very nice to you. Okay, I'm your friend now. I don't like those people. Then from this side, you go to this side, this side. So children are fickle. So he's accusing the Lord. This Vishnu is so fickle-minded, like a small child. He has forgotten that he's supposed to be impartial, and he has sided with the. He was supposed to be not influenced by Maya, but looks like he's influenced by Maya. So foolishly like this, without understanding the reality, he accuses Lord Hari of partiality. And he says, now I'm going to punish this Vishnu. How I'm going to punish this Vishnu? He took the form of Varaha and he killed my brother Hiranyaksha. So I'm going to punish him by severing the head of Vishnu from his trunk. And the blood which flows from the slain body of Vishnu, I'm going to offer it to my brother Hiranyaksha as a tarpan to please him. Because my brother Hiranyaksha, he was so fond of sucking blood. So just look at the mentality. Hiranyaksha was so fond of sucking blood, so I'm going to slaughter Vishnu and cut off his neck and then offer his blood. It's all foolish talk. Obviously, the Lord's body is not material, first of all, so this is an illusory thing. Second, the Lord is influenced by the modes and overcome by Maya is another foolish comment. Hiranyakashipu. So all these things are obviously very foolish, but being overwhelmed with lamentation, Hiranyakashipu was, and he was telling all the demons, when I slain this Vishnu, just like when the roots of a tree are cut, the tree, its branches, its twigs, its leaves will all eventually dry up. Similarly, Vishnu is the root, the strength of all these devatas. This diplomatic Chalak Vishnu, who's the life and soul of the devatas, once he is finished, all the devatas will lose their strength. When Vishnu is finished, also along with that, should also do another job. You should go to the earth and while I am busy killing Vishnu, you all demons should go to the earth and cut the power source of the devatas from the other side. Devatas have two power sources. One is Vishnu and the other are the offerings of yajna which are done on the earth. So on earth, so much of dharmic activities going on, yajnas are going on. So the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas ensure proper execution of yajnas and the proper execution of dharma, on earth, the Devatas become powerful. So a Brahminical culture and a proper Kshatriya government on earth are actually the source of strength for the Devatas. Because when these two are in place, strong Brahminical knowledge is there, and when the Kshatriyas protect the Brahmanas and make sure that the kingdom is ruled based on the dharmic principles given by the Brahmanas, when people are engaged in austerity, in study of the Vedas, in following their vows, in charity, yajna, dana, tapa, then the Devatas become strong. And Krishna mentions this particular principle in the Bhagavad Gita as well. So Hiranyakashipu is not wrong in this assessment. He's very right. Excuse me. Krishna says, Paraspara Bhavayantam. When the people follow the regulative principles, perform the yajnas, through the yajnas, the devatas are nourished because the devatas get their food, get their energy through the offerings that people give. And in return, the devatas who are in charge of the various uh, facilities of nature, in return provide the necessary rain, light, and whatever else is needed in terms of natural opulences, so that the earth is opulent and the needs of the living entities are taken care of. So Hiranyakashipu said, let us finish this both. I will take care of Vishnu. Don't bother about that. I can manage him. I will slay him. You go down to the earth. Finish off all the Brahmanas. Make sure no yajnas are performed. Lord Vishnu is yajna personified. And he is the shelter of the Devatas. He is the shelter of the Devatas, the Pitris, and of people in general. So let us go and kill the Brahmanas. So that when Brahmanas are killed, no yajnas are performed. Also, the Kshatriyas are not guided. And automatically, all the Devatas will die of malnutrition, no food. So immediately go wherever there is dharma, wherever there is yajna, wherever there is cows and Brahmanas are protected and worshipped, wherever the Vedas are studied, and wherever Varnashram dharma is practiced, set fire to those places. So this is what the demons do. The demons are demoniac, but they are not foolish. They know what is the root of spiritual culture. And this demoniac intelligence of the demons, which Hiranyakashipu exhibits here, is even being practiced by the demoniac people even today. That is why Sanatana Dharma is continuously attacked. And what way? It's the same way. Destroy the cows, the Brahmanas, demean religion and religious principles. And Brahmanas are demonized and eliminated, and no yajnas are performed. Eventually, all forces of goodness will perish and the demoniac forces can rule. So it's not very different. You analyze this politics and how so many anti-India, anti-Bharat, anti-Sanatan Dharma forces are working together. They're actually precisely trying to do this. I don't have time to go into that whole discussion. That's a big, broad topic. But if you observe carefully, this is exactly what they're doing, exactly what Hiranyakashipu. So demons are demoniac, but they are not foolish. Foolishness is different. Demons are extremely intelligent and hardworking, extremely enterprising, but all for their own selfish purposes. So being instructed by Hiranyakashipu like that, all these demons rushed to the earth, created chaos. They were burning down ashrams, they were destroying temples, fields, breaking down city walls, city gates, hermitages of saintly people. villages, wherever cows were being protected, they were destroying the cow shelters, they were killing the cow herdmen, they were destroying and burning down capital. So any form of systematic execution of dharma and systematic governance which was there on earth, they were totally trying to uproot and create chaos. Their end goal was to make sure no dharma is followed and no yajna is performed on. When all this was happening, the devatas became very worried. Correct? Because for the devatas, they are also nourished by a particular system. And they are worried, Are Baba, because of all this that is happening on earth, no yajnas will be performed, then we'll become weak. Correct? Just like government will survive only if people pay taxes. Correct? Because from the taxes, not only welfare for the state happens, but the government gets its own salary. All the people who are occupying the government, their facilities, their salaries all come from taxes. The devatas are also government officials on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Their taxes are the yajnas which are performed. So the devatas become very upset. Of course, this is in a Satya Yuga period, so this was unusual. But in Kali Yuga, this is common scenario. The Shastras, it is said that up to Dwapara, the devatas would even come on earth to accept the offerings of yajnas. But in Kali Yuga, the devatas don't bother to come. Because they know Kali Yuga means fasting time. It is the Ekadashi time. Hardly any yajnas will be performed. And even if somebody attempts to perform yajna, they'll neither be qualified people. And so much we have heard about the kind of ghee that is produced. What kind of nourishment the devatas will get? Ghee which is mixed with animal lard. So ingredients are not pure. Brahmanas are not pure. Rituals are not followed properly. The yajman is not pure. The motivation is not. Everything is a mess. So generally in Kali Yuga, the devatas, it is said, they barely come on earth. You can barely see them. In previous because you could actually see the devatas, especially when yajnas were performed. So this time when this happened, the devatas, it was Satyuga, so it was expected that yajnas will be performed, but because of all this chaos which Hiranyakashipu had unleashed on earth, there was such a widespread destruction that hardly any yajnas were performed. And the devatas in invisible forms are roaming around earth saying, Arey, what happened? Nobody's performing yajna, they were roaming around. So like this, massive chaos was going. Parallelly, as all these instructions were given by Hiranyakashipu, the demons to create destruction, Hiranyakashipu had another problem to deal with. As he was preparing to finish off the devatas, the other problem that he had to deal with was because of the recent death, it was probably just barely even days after the death of Hiranyaksha. All the demons were very, very sad, especially the family members of Hiranyakashipu were extremely morose and they were lamenting like anything. Especially the wife of Hiranyaksha, name was Rushabhanu, his mother Diti, his nephews, the sons of Hiranyaksha. They were all besides themselves, so unexpected. Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were the most powerful living entities in the universe, and suddenly Hiranyaksha is killed. It's like an unimaginable thing. So Hiranyakashipu understood that I have to somehow manage this situation and help my family members overcome their lamentation. So he was very intelligent. He knew all this while I have been talking demoniac things, but to overcome lamentation, speaking demoniac things is not good enough. So I must use another tactic to help my mother, my sister-in-law, my nephews overcome their lamentation. So I have to pacify them. So no better thing works at pacifying the lamentation of the death of a near and dear one other than giving a philosophy class. And this is the continuous observation of all living entities. If anytime you want to hear Bhagavatam class, you invariably go to the crematorium or the graveyard and look at what the people around there are talking. At least for the 15-20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour that they are there, they'll be talking about, oh, how life is uncertain, how anything can happen at any time. Suddenly everybody becomes wise. Of course, that wisdom and knowledge and insight disappears as soon as they step out of the crematorium. But at least at that time it works. Hiranyakashipu said, okay, now I have to deal with this, so let me give a Bhagavatam class. So this chapter is actually the Bhagavatam class given by Hiranyakashipu. The rest of the chapter is Shri Hiranyakashipu Uvacha. So he starts his class. So now we are going to hear the class of Hiranyakashipu. So demons are very smart. They know when to use spirituality to suit their purpose. Sometimes when we talk about demons, we think that demons are, always just atheistic. They always don't believe God. But the essence of demoniac mentality, of course, they don't like God and they want to deny God is one thing. But they will use God where it is convenient for them. And they'll throw away God when it is inconvenient to them. So here he thought, maybe I should use some spirituality. So he started his class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Because he didn't say like that. He said, my dear mother, my sister-in-law, my nephews, do not lament like this. So first he starts his class by glorifying Hiranyaksha. Such a great hero. The death of a hero is celebrated, especially a hero who has fought in a war and died. It is glorious to die in front of the enemy for a Kshatriya. So you should not lament. He died as a great hero. And then we should all know, my dear mother, we are all just temporary living entities who have gathered together for some time by the arrangement of destiny. Just like people gather together in a restaurant or in a place to drink water, come together for some time, and they go away in their own way and continue in their destination. Similarly, all of us, including Hiranyaksha, had come together through some higher arrangement and now has gone. Please understand, the soul has no birth and no death, is eternal, is inexhaustible, is never affected by anything material, is never cut, is never burned. So he came in full form, Hiranyakashipu, Prabhu. He is different from the body. He is not slain when the body is slain. Soul is distinct from the subtle and gross bodies. And all this so-called material happiness and distress and all these are just all external, ephemeral. That is why you should not lament when the soul leaves the body. My God. Solid class. I mean, the verses, whatever he says is perfectly true. But obviously, from the activities of Hiranyakashipu, we know he has no realization of this statement. He's just using philosophy to temporarily pacify. He's using it as therapy. to manage the lamentation of his family. He's not serious about anything that he's talking. And he's giving various philosophical examples, just like there is a reflection of a tree on the bank of a lake. When the water is moving, it appears as if the tree is moving, but actually the tree is never affected. Similarly, the soul is distinct from the body. It appears to be affected when the modes of material nature affect the body. Actually, the soul is never affected. Seems that the soul has changed its condition. Soul is distinct. Only because of the bewilderment of the false ego, the soul thinks himself the body. He thinks his kinsmen and relatives to be his own. And based on this misconception of I, me, and mine, he associates all the happenings associated with this body and its connected things, happiness or distress, based on how he interprets events connected with his concocted identity. And like this, the soul goes from body to body to body and continues in the cycle of samsara, birth and death, which are accompanied by lamentation, foolishness, and anxiety because of all this material association. In this way, the living entity is built. Hari bol, everybody is excited. Jai Hiranyakashipu. Wonderful philosopher. So then, to make the class more interesting, Hiranyakashipu also wants to tell some story. So Hiranyakashipu also starts to quote a story. Now I will tell you a very ancient Puranic story, Hiranyakashipu says, to illustrate the point that I just mentioned, so that you understand how this whole world is temporary and death is a very natural event which we should all expect. I am going to die, you are going to die, Hiranyakashipu has died, all of us will eventually die. What is there to lament? So now I will tell you one discourse that Yamaraj gave to the relatives of a dead person. So now Hiranyakashipu is telling a story. This is a Puranic story, an old story. He says that in the state of Ushinar, in ancient times, there was a king. His name was Suyadnya. This king Suyadnya was fighting a battle. Very beautiful king, very prosperous, so many wives, beautiful young wives. He was fighting a war, and unfortunately, this king, very valorously he fought, but he got killed on the battle. And he was in the middle of the battle. He was biting his lips in anger, trying to attack the enemy. Biting his lips, and he got slain, and he was dead with his teeth biting his lips. Ah, fell down. His crown fell off. His ornaments were scattered. His lifeless, lusterless body was lying on the battlefield. And the shocked queens, for whom their husband, this king Suyadnya, was all in all, they rushed into the battlefield and they jumped and fell at the body of the king, and they were all these many very young beautiful queens. They started crying and lamenting like anything. Hi, hi, hi. They were pounding their chest and falling at the feet of the king and lamenting, "Oh Lord, our savior, our protector, you have been killed. Now what will happen to us? Who is there for us?" They were crying and crying. Very pitiable scene. This Hiranyakashipu is telling story. So they were lamenting so much. Usually, sometimes people lament for a few minutes, then they pacify, and then other relatives take these close relatives away, and then they arrange for the funeral rites and all that. But these kids were so overwhelmed with lamentation that they were not at all willing to even let go of the body of the king. The king had died in the morning. By evening, the king had to be cremated. Correct? That's the Vedic system, right? Person dies in the day. During daytime, he should be cremated before sunset the same day. That is the expectation. Shastra. They are not letting the body go. They are not letting anybody do the funeral rites because they were thinking this body of the king is my husband. So everybody became worried and they were crying and lamenting so hard that Yamraj became surprised. अरे बाप रे ये तो कुछ अलग ही लेवल का lamentation है. This lamentation is very at a different level. And Yamraj said, okay, let me maybe I should go down and give a Bhagavatam class to these queens so that they become pacified. So this Hiranyakashipu is telling, Hiranyakashipu is telling that Yamaraj thought, I must pacify the queens of Suyadnya. But Yamaraj did not come in his own form as a devata, as a demigod. He took the form of a small child. And approaching the relatives, which is the queens, he started speaking to them and preaching to them. He said, oh, so strange. How amazing it is that these people are lamenting like this. Don't they know? People are always dying. So many people came, have become born, and they have died. So many more will come, and they will also die. Everyone who's born is bound to die. Why are these people so bewildered? We come from an unknown place, we are here for some time, then we go to some unknown place. There is no exception to this rule. Even though they know this, why are these queens uselessly lamenting? I am such a small boy. I understand all this. These are all grown up women. Why can't they understand this? He started speaking like this. Ultimately, it is the Lord who is in charge of protecting both the life and the death of the living entities. Who is protecting me? I'm a lone child. I'm roaming around the forest, but I'm still protected. Nobody can kill me because the Lord is protecting me. Similarly, if the Lord wants somebody to die, who can protect him? All this life and death are controlled by higher forces, by the arrangement of the Lord. He's the one who's the final controller. He's the one who decides. Oh, women, you should understand this is all happening by the will of the Supreme Personality. The whole world is created and maintained by Him. Everything is like His play. He is the only one who's competent to destroy. He's the one who's competent to protect. So like this, he goes on, emphasizing to the queens that they should not be overwhelmed. That we may sometimes not understand what is the purpose of the Lord in doing what He does. Why the Lord in certain cases protects and why the Lord in certain cases allows or becomes the agent for the perishing of someone. One should simply accept all of this as a higher will. But the soul is never affected. So he goes on, he gives a lot of philosophical points. I'm not going to go through all of them. And then he makes a very interesting point after making a lot of philosophical arguments. He makes a lot of point. Wonderful point. He says, O queens, Suyadnya that you are crying for, huh? You loved this Suyadnya, all your life you were seeing his body of the king. The same body is now lying in front of you. Huh? Then why are you lamenting? Because if he was the actual king, this body was the king, this body was your husband, then the body is still here. So for whose departure are you lamenting? And if the one that you are lamenting for is not the body, is the soul, and that soul you have never seen, and that soul is never destroyed, why are you lamenting for? Correct? The soul never dies. The body is still in front of you. What is the reason for your lamentation? So, very interestingly, he argues with the queens in various ways and tries to inject some spiritual insight to the queens of Maharaj Suyad. And says that, more or less the same thing which Hiranyakashipu says earlier, that it is by the karma of the living entity. The soul who is bound by the subtle and the gross bodies according to his karma performs various activities, he faces the reaction. The Lord is just facilitating all these things. Ultimately, each living entity is creating his own karma. But ultimately, one should understand that both the good and the bad are all material and external. And they have nothing to do with the real nature of the self. The happiness and distress of the material world and of the material senses actually doesn't affect the soul anymore. Ultimately, from the highest perspective, happiness and distress should be understood to be meaningless. They are ephemeral. They are mrisha. Mrisha means false. False means very superficial. Correct? Just like in dream, one may think that one is enjoying very nicely. It's meaningless because actually nothing is happening. It is all a mental concoction. Similarly, even material and happiness and distress in the so-called waking state is also nothing but a deluded concoction of the conditioned soul because of false identification. Actually, there is nothing auspicious or inauspicious. All these are just meaningless appearances. And those who are self-realized, this boy is telling these ladies, they understand that the soul is eternal, that the body is always perishable, and they don't take seriously what the body and its products, the transformations that it goes through. Only those who lack spiritual knowledge, they are affected by lamentation. They are affected by anxiety. Then this Yamaraj, who's explaining this to the queens, he says, let me tell another story to illustrate my point. So now this is story within the story within the story. Correct? I don't know whether you have tracked or you lost track the conversation. Anyway, once we complete the story, we'll backtrack. So Yamaraj, as the boy, is telling a story to the queens of Suyadnya that once there was a hunter who was expert in catching birds. This hunter, he laid out a net, and in that net he kept some food. And he would lure the birds and he would catch them. It so happened there was a pair of Kulinga birds, very beautiful Kulinga birds with family and small children. The female Kulinga bird was captivated by this food which was kept on the net, and not realizing the trap, she went to eat there and she was caught by the hunter. This male Kulinga bird, when he saw that his dear wife, his life and soul, was put into the danger and was caught by the hunter, he became so overwhelmed with lamentation because of his affection for her that he began to lament and lament. Oh, now what will happen? By providence, who is so merciless, my wife has been captured and she is lamenting, but I am unable to help her. What will providence get by taking away this poor bird? This is what we usually lament, right? When we are put into distress. Why destiny is doing this to me? What have I done? What will God gain by doing this to me? So, These are the usual lamentations of the conditions. If Providence wants to take away my wife, then the Providence should also take me away. What is the use of living me? My wife dies, I will also die. What is there any point of my continuing to live? All these small baby birds of ours, they are here without the mother now, nobody to take care of them. So cruel providences. As this Kulinga bird, male Kulinga bird was lamenting like this, he was lamenting so loud that the hunter noticed Kulinga bird, male Kulinga bird lamenting. And he was a sitting duck for this hunter. So very easily, because of his lamentation, he was very unaware of his surroundings. Very easily, the hunter took an arrow, shot, and killed the male Kulinga bird also. So Yamaraj, who's in the disguise of the boy, is telling the wives of King Suyadna, see, this is what happens because of foolish lamentation. The Kulinga bird's wife had died. He lamented. He couldn't stop his wife from dying because that was the arrangement of Providence. But by his foolishness, eventually he was also killed. This is the destiny of all. Why are you lamenting for your husband? Your husband was destined to die. If you remain like this and you keep lamenting, neither is your husband going to come back, but very soon you will also die lamenting the rest of your life. Nothing else will happen. Don't be foolish. Understand that the body is perishable and the living entity, the self, the soul, is never slain. So reflect on this. This young boy is telling you, reflect, who am I? What is my real nature? What is actually mine? So when he instructed like this, the wives of Suyadnya suddenly realized their folly. Oh, yes. And especially when a class is given by a young boy, it becomes very attractive. So when a young boy speaks words of wisdom, everyone wants to listen very attentively. So the wives of King Suyadnya gave up their lamentation, and then eventually the last rites of King Suyadnya were done. In that way, Yamaraj was successful, convincing the wives. So this story is being narrated by Hiranyakashipu, Diti, Rishabhanu, and his nephews. That this is what had happened long back. When King Suyadnya was killed, and at that time Yamaraj came and he told the story of the Kulinga birds. This is how you pacified. So please understand, I have quoted now from Shastra, from histories. This is the wisdom. Don't be overwhelmed. Understand this was meant to happen. Understand that we are eternal. Don't lament. The hero Hiranyaksha is gone. And don't worry, I will take the revenge. So somehow his very intelligent argument and his very nice presentation of philosophy. Because philosophically, whatever he said was all correct. The Bhagavatam class of Hiranyaksha was perfect. That he did not have an actual realization is a different issue. Very good Bhagavatam class. And he actually succeeded in pacifying, at least temporarily, the lamentation of the queens. They all felt, yes, yes, what Hiranyakashipu Prabhu is saying in his Bhagavatam class is all true. Should not lament. Let us now understand that Hiranyaksha is eternal. His soul is eternal. So let us not be overly disturbed. And in that way, they became at least temporarily fixed in the real philosophy of life. So in this way, the Bhagavatam class by Hiranyakashipu ended. The successful outcome that he managed to. So this brings us to the end of the chapter. So this is a very interesting episode. So let's not have an archetype in our mind that only devotees speak philosophy. Demons may also sometimes speak philosophy when they need, when they need to serve a particular purpose. They'll also use philosophy. Sometimes demons use philosophy not just for overcoming lamentation, but to justify their sinful activity also. So ultimately, the difference between devatas and the demons is not so much of philosophy, following of rituals, how they dress, what they eat. Because there may be some high level distinctions between them, but ultimately it's about selfishness versus selflessness, acting for oneself versus acting for the pleasure of the Lord. That is why the definition of the Sura is given as Vishnu Bhakta Smrta Daivas Asura Tad Viparyaya. Those who are devoted to serving Vishnu are the Devatas. And those who are dedicated to serving themselves and those who are opposed to the service of Vishnu are the demons. So even though philosophy may be used, religious rituals may be used, the demons use them only to increase ultimately their own selfish enjoyment or pacification, whether it is physical, mental, emotional, whatever their need may be at that particular time. That's why you see many of these demons. You'll see them doing austerities, you'll see them at times doing yajnas, you'll see them at some times giving classes. So one has to be very careful. Sometimes it's very difficult to understand who's a devotee and who's a demon. It is the motivation ultimately of the individual, which ultimately determines whether one is a devotee or a demon. So it's a very interesting uh, topic in that sense. So that brings us to the end of this class. So this is the first chapter. First chapter, this is the second chapter, but it's the first chapter where the pastimes narration of Hiranyakashipu begins. And then the story evolves from here, leading to how Hiranyakashipu goes for austerities. Then the conception of Prahlad, the birth of Prahlad, in the womb of Kayadu, how Narad Muni comes and intervenes in the situation, then how Prahlad grows. This whole story will evolve all the way leading to the appearance of Hiranyakashipu. Okay. So thank you very much. I'm going to conclude the class. Thank you for patiently listening. So before we open the floor for any questions, we do the Damodar Ashtaka. Just one request, my throat is still not very good, so I'm not in a position to sing the entire Damodar Ashtaka. So just forgive me, I'll just sing uh, the main verse, then we'll offer the lamp, and then we'll take questions. I sing irritates my throat. I hope that is okay. Namam Ishwaram Sachidanandarupam Lasatakundalam Gokule Brajamanam Jashodabhiyolukhaladavamanam Paramrishtamathyanta Sodritya Gopya Udanta Muhurnetram Yugmam Rijantam Karam Bhoja Yugmena Satantanam Muhushwasakampa Pririkanka Kantha Stita Graivam Damodaram Bhakti Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare Jai Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Govardhan Parvat. So we'll utter one verse in glorification. There's a pranam mantra of Govardhan. So we will offer that worshipful mantra to Govardhan. Remember and seek his blessings. Namaste Girirajaya Govardhan iti namine Ashesha Kleshanashaya Paramanandadayini. That I am offering obeisances to the king of the mountains, who is named Govardhan. Ashesha Kleshanasha, who can destroy without exception all kinds of miseries of the living entities and bestow on them, not just destroy miseries, greatest of happiness, Paramanandadayini. So Govardhan is very, very special. So just 2 minutes on Giriraj. Giriraj is Haridasa Varya. He is the topmost devotee of the Lord. Even though he is the Lord himself, he is also the topmost devotee. Correct? We have discussed this point many times. That there are many forms of the Lord, which even though they are Lord, they are also of the mentality of servitude towards Krishna. Namaste Girirajaya. He's the greatest. Why is the greatest devotee? Because he's serving Krishna and Rama all the time. How? By becoming the playground of God. So one way to serve God is by being his playground. How playground? The whole mountain is a playground where Krishna and Balram and the cows graze. Throughout the day, they roam around on the mountain. Very beautiful mountain. So beautiful. There are beautiful forests. There are beautiful caves. There are very crystal clear water streams. So there are beautiful caves where they can rest. They can play hide and seek. There are so many trees, beautiful flowers and fruits for Krishna and Balram. There are so many minerals which Krishna Balram used to decorate themselves. The soil on the Govardhan hill. The cows have wonderful soft grass on the Govardhan hill and pure water. So in that way, Govardhan is serving Krishna and Balram all the time. This way. By being a playground. So the Gopas as well as the Gopis perform beautiful, beautiful pastimes on Govardhan hill. And that is why Krishna's Rupa Goswami, Nectar of Instruction, says that within Braj, Vrindavan is very, very special. And more higher than Vrindavan is Govardhan hill. Because Krishna and Rama perform their pastimes there on the hill of Govardhan. And within Govardhan hill, Radhakund is the topmost. Radhakund is of course a part of Govardhan hill, so it is not outside the Govardhan hill. Radhakund and Shamkund are considered to be the two eyes of the peacock of the very, very special. It's a very, very beautiful pastime, one of the most enchanting pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very special for many reasons, especially famous because not only the extraordinary feat performed by the Lord, but this is one of those pastimes the Lord brought all the categories of devotees together in one go at one time for 7 days, 7 nights under the Govardhan Hill, where everyone got full access to the Lord. Only most devotees could interact with the Lord only for a brief while, for a brief part of the day. But 7 days, 7 nights, unrestricted access. Krishna is standing up, holding the hill. Krishna is not just simply standing. Krishna is looking into the eyes of each and every devotee, and having beautiful, loving reciprocations with all. This is Krishna's greatness. Krishna is so unlimited, he can simultaneously look into the eyes of all and personally reciprocate them. Very nice, loving reciprocations. So a lot of beautiful, beautiful pastimes are associated with this bigger Leela of Govardhan Leela. So I hope you got some opportunity over the day to listen to it. If not, please study and hear in detail about this particular Govardhan Leela. Very, very good. Thank you very much. I'm opening up the floor. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you all had a wonderful Deepavali festivity as well. And I hope you're all doing Damodar lamp offering. And I hope you're all maintaining count because I'm going to ask you at the end of the month. Yeah, so please keep track. Whoever your own offerings, whoever you encourage to offer, whatever programs you do, that's my request. That way, we attract more and more blessings of the Lord. So these are special opportunities for us to attract Krishna's attention. Okay, so any questions, any comments, anybody wants to say anything? Okay, wonderful. So thank you. That means you're all fully satisfied. Good. So we will meet then again on Tuesday. We'll continue our discussion of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So enjoy the rest of the evening, your family and loved ones, remembering the glories of Govardhan, the wonderful mercy of the month of Damodar. And I'll see you all soon. Thank you very much. Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Damodar Bas ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह देव की जय, प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, सामवेद गौरव की जय, निताय गौर सीतानाथ। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
thank you,
Prabhuji.
Vinod, thank you, Puja Mataji, thank you, Sneha ji, Tarun, happy Diwali. Rita ji, where are you? Seem to be in a different place. Are you at home?
Yes, Prabhuji. I'm at home.
Okay. Archana ji, Sini ji, thank you. Sapna ji, Indulekha Mata ji, Ravendra Prabhu, Sridevi Mata ji, Priya Amit, Anand Sundari Mata ji. Thank you all very much. Archana ji, Leela Mata ji, thank you. I'll see you all on Tuesday.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Rita ji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shalini ji, Hare Krishna. All is well. And Sarolakshmi Mata ji, Hari Hari. She is connected, I think. Okay. Hari.